Welcome, dear listener, to a season of magic. It's me, Brooke, your host. This is the Say More podcast, and this is witching season. You guys, it's here. In the northern hemisphere, anyway, it's fall, the air has a new chill, the days are growing shorter, the shadows are lengthening earlier each and every evening, and we have entered the Samhain portal. What does that mean? Samhain, but pronounced Samhain. It's the ancient Celtic twilight of the year. Now, in the old world, Samhain marked summer's end and the witch's new year. It's a liminal time when the veil between our world and the spirit world thins. Some people call it Scorpio season, some people call it Halloween season, spooky season. There are all different kinds of ways to talk about it. But it's no coincidence that we feel drawn inward during this time, right? Our bodies are echoing what the earth is doing. And as autumn deepens into winter, we each undertake a kind of inner descent, right? The earth is going dark and fallow. And so we too turn toward our inner darkness to reflect, to dream, to listen for the whispers of intuition that grow louder in the quiet. As I said, it's Scorpio season in the zodiac. It is a time of transformation, mystery, the unseen. I'm a Scorpio, so I am particularly interested in this time of year. And under the sign of a Scorpion, all of us, no matter our signs, are invited to shed old skins and dance with our shadows, right? We are in a season of death, metaphorical death, like the leaves on the trees. It's all part of the process, right? To go dark so that then rebirth can happen. This feels like the perfect time of year to talk about witches. My favorite topic, my Roman Empire. Why witches? I'm so glad you asked. Listen, I've thought a lot about this. I've read a lot about this. The witch archetype has always lived in the borderlands, at the edge of light and dark, village and forest, known and unknown. And at this threshold time of year, I find that she calls out to me more than ever. Personally, I've been enchanted with this figure of the witch since I was a little girl dressing up on Halloween, trailing my plastic cauldron door to door, way, way, way before I understood her deeper meaning. And as I grew older, and as a woman drawn to the esoteric with the Scorpio sun and moon pulling me into the depths, I eventually began to realize that the witch was much more than a costume or a fairy tale villain. She is a profound archetype of power and possibility. She is a keeper of old wisdom, a woman in tune with nature and herself. Everybody defines the word differently, and it's worth asking because I think the conversation can be generative. But to me, witch is a word of freedom. It crackles with untamed creativity and self-sovereignty. The witch in my life is the part of me that trusts my intuition, even when it defies logic. She is the voice that says, heal and transform, even if the world fears what you might become. And embracing the witch archetype feels like coming home to a truth I have always known, that there is magic and meaning in the world. It is just there, waiting for us to remember it. So this season of the podcast is a love letter to that remembrance. Over the next 5 weeks, I'm inviting you to join me in the conversations with women who embody a different facet of the witch. Each one represents a different embodiment of this archetype and of this lineage. Some of them call themselves witches. Others might not use that word, yet their work is undeniably woven with the witch's spirit. We're going to meet a healer who draws power from her ancestors' survival tools, a pattern seer who charts the stars and our very designs, a storyteller reviving folk magic from the farthest corners of the world, and more. So I want you to think of this as a gathering around a modern-day Samhain fire. We're sharing stories, we are reclaiming old ways. Oh, a truck driving down the street as I'm recording this. We are sparking new insights. And each episode will light another candle in our circle, illuminating what witch means in our time, and perhaps what it has always meant. Now, as we embark on this journey, my intention is not ever to paint a caricature of the witch with a pointy hat and a broom, nor to dabble in sort of vague mysticism that floats away on the breeze. There's a lot of that out there. I have no interest in being a part of that. Instead, we will be using precise language and real traditions to ground ourselves, okay? We're going to talk about the Celtic roots of this season, how bonfires were lit on hilltops at Samhain to guide the kindly spirits, and how even now we all carry on the ritual of reflection as the year wanes. We will explore witchcraft as a craft, as practice, lineage, story, and intuition. And these conversations are thoughtful, they're intimate, they're sometimes challenging, and sometimes poetic. I was pleasantly surprised by some of the places we came to in the interviews. But above all, they are personal. The witch is an identity that can scare or delight. She's often misunderstood. She is often historically misaligned. But here in this space, we're peeling back those layers of a stereotype and igniting the ancient archetype with fresh insight. And I am asking you to be a part of this. Yes, you. You listening. My hope is that as you listen and as you consider this, you will find pieces of yourself in these stories, a mirror for you in the witch's cauldron. And maybe you'll remember moments when you too felt something uncanny or powerful stirring in you. Perhaps a time when you trusted your own weird, wild voice. Maybe you're witch curious. Maybe the word makes you kind of uncomfortable. All of these responses are welcome in our circle. I'm inviting you to approach these episodes with an open heart and a sense of witchy wonder. So brew a cup of tea or something a little stronger if the spirit moves you. Get cozy as the dark comes early, and let us descend together into the rich underground current of this season. By the end of our journey, as winter whispers at the door, we will have traveled through tales of survival and synchronicity, pattern and folklore, spoken word, and sacred ritual. We'll honor the wise women who came before us. We'll celebrate the magic that lives quietly in our own modern lives. This is a season about claiming power and finding meaning in the unseen. This is about the witch, not as a Halloween caricature, but a very real living archetype of the feminine, the mysterious, the healer, the rebel, the teacher, the conduit between worlds. So, under the thinning veil of Samhain night and the Scorpio sun, let us begin. The cauldron is simmering. The candles are lit. Come, gather, and meet the witches. Today we open our circle with the everyday witch. My guest is Shannon Speir, a modern witchcraft practitioner, intuitive guide, and yes, a busy mom of two from New Jersey. Shannon may not fit Hollywood's image of the witch, and that is exactly the point. She shows us that the truest magic thrives in our everyday lives. I've nicknamed her our everyday witch because she specializes in weaving the sacred into the mundane. She creates community rituals for events like new moons and eclipses, but she'll be the first to tell you that you don't need fancy tools or mystic jargon to live magically. For Shannon, brewing morning coffee with intention can be as powerful as casting a circle. Her motto is The mundane is just as magical as the elaborate spells. And she really lives that. In this conversation, Shannon shares how claiming the title witch just a year ago was less a radical change and more an awakening to who she's always been. We talk about what it was like for her to come out as a witch in her everyday world, among friends and family, and how she integrates her practice with real life in a genuine way. You'll hear how she approaches ritual with refreshing simplicity, whether it's using whatever herbs are in the pantry or turning a walk in the neighborhood into a grounding spell of its own. Shannon's presence is down to earth and empowering. She invites us to drop the notion that spirituality has to be separate from regular life. As the first episode of our witchy season, this sets the tone. Inclusive, grounded, and deeply intentional. Shannon helps us root the archetype of the witch in the here and now, in the soil of daily routine and personal truth. By the end, you might feel inspired to find the little witchy moments hiding in your own day, the ritual in your routine, the magic in your Monday. So let's begin at the beginning with a witch of the everyday. Here's my conversation with Shannon Speir, the everyday witch who reminds us that the spark of magic is already in our kitchen, our family, our breath, in every moment we choose to make sacred. Enjoy the episode. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I am a big fan of your work. And you are a witch. You identify as a witch. And before we started recording, you were saying that this is the first sort of podcast you've done since you came out as a witch publicly a year ago. So
yes,
why that? How long have you been a witch? And what was the coming out? And what's your why?
Well, I think that for a lot of people who identify as witches, you kind of come into when it finally occurs to you, you're like, oh, I've always been this way. And it definitely was that for me. So I would say my journey formally into witchcraft and into reclaiming that identity as a witch is all pretty recent, within the last 3 or 4 years. However, when I look back on my life and I look back on who I was as a child and the things I've always believed in and the way that I've loved to live and the things that I value in my life, I realize, oh, I was always a witch the whole time. It just took a moment where I was deep in meditation, because I have some clairs, everybody does, predominantly clairvoyance and clairaudience. And I had a moment where I was really deep into meditation and a voice outside of myself that was not my voice said witch, in my room where I was meditating, and my eyes came open. I was like, oh my God. And it hit me just like this, a tidal wave. And I went, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And then that kind of began my journey informally into the craft.
Mm-hmm. And when you say the word witch, it has a lot of history, a lot of cultural significance. How do you define that personally, and what does it mean to you to then embody that word in the way you walk through the world?
So for me, witch is very informal. So I don't actually think that somebody needs to be continually practicing witchcraft or ritual or those kind of energetic manipulative practices in order for them to feel as a witch and be as a witch. I think that a witch is really just a person who is getting down to their remembrance of their wholeness, their worthiness, what it means to live with the earth on the earth, what it means to live intentionally, and how you weave and breathe with that intention through all of the things that you do, which was something that you and I had kind of touched on, which is a big part of what I preach and what I talk about and what I embody in my own life, is the idea that the mundane is just as magical, if not more magical, than the magic that you do itself, like in these big elaborate rituals or spells or something like that. So for me, like that's a witch, is like a person who's getting down to the remembrance, to the core of yourself. And so there's lots of people who I see out in the world who it would probably never even occur to them to maybe to label themselves as a witch, but I see it. Like I see that essence in them, or the way that they live, or the way that they walk through life, or the things that they do. And I'm like, little witch.
And how is that received when because you're also, not that any woman or person has to be one archetype. We are all many things, but you are a mom. You live in New Jersey, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Yes. And so,
Yes.
and I lived there for a minute. I get it. And it's funny when you're sort of like, oh, I feel this way when I'm a mom saying, yeah, I'm just a normal person, grocery shopping. Please trust me with your children. And then you're also having this whole rich inner life where you say, I'm a witch. And I mean that. I'm not joking. I'm not making a witch talk video on TikTok. I'm actually serious. How do you reconcile those? And how do you feel that it landed both privately in your relationships and then publicly when you declared this in Instagram and in the online space?
Well, thankfully, I've always been a person who has been unabashedly and been themselves without disclaimer, without apology, without any of those things. So I've always kind of been that person. I was always the girl where, I moved around a lot as a kid, right? And so every school that I went to, I had this, it was a repeated cycle that would happen every single time, everywhere that I moved. The popular clique of girls would like try to adopt me, and they'd be like, so like I would come to school, we would interact, they'd maybe invite me over to like, a gathering that they were doing, or like whatever, like come hang out with us after school. And like very quickly I'd be like, yeah, you guys fucking suck. Like you're just kind of like shitty people. and then I would be like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out with those people. And then I would go and I would find my place amongst the band geeks and the chorus nerds and the musical theater geeks. And like, that's the world that I was like, nope, I'm just going to be over here being myself. And it happened that way. I mean, every school from kindergarten on, even in grade school, I'd be like, yeah, you guys fucking suck. And so I would just like go off and do my own thing. So kind of building on that, coming out in that way, it's just kind of like, it's who I am. Like if you're going to judge me, I've had people judging me my whole life. In human design, I have a 5-line. So that's the heretic. So it's kind of like this lived existence of, people are always going to have their perception of who I am. And sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's not. And I've gone through these experiences in my life over and over again with that 5-line where people's opinion of me can flip on a dime. Where like they'll have like a great opinion of me and I won't have changed anything, but all of a sudden their perception of me changes somehow. And like I've realized that it's just a part of this life that I'm living. And it's something I have to accept and to not really take personally. So when it came time to just being like, I'm a witch, like this is who I am, it made sense. And fortunately for me, it was kind of easy. Now, there are like some moments in my life where maybe I choose my words a little bit more wisely. Like if somebody asks me what I do, sometimes like if I'm like, this is a safe person, this isn't going to have an effect on like my kids or whatever, I'll be like, I'm a witch. Like I'll just like be really blunt about it. And then for other people, I'll just be like, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a business. I mean, if they ask me further, if they inquire further, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is what I do, and I'll explain what I do. But it's always been pretty simple for me, and I'm grateful too to live in an area where there's a little bit more like openness and there's less of that like fear of like, is this going to affect somebody outside of myself? So that's really nice and that's comforting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think when people hear the word witch, they hear a lot of things. Some go straight to Salem and they're like, yes, the witch trials. We learned about that in school. Some go straight to Halloween, the crone, the hag, pick your Disney villain. Some go to Stevie Nicks, sort of like a 60s, 70s sex witch, psychedelic moment. There are all of these archetypes that witches have inhabited throughout history, and it's always a product of the historical moment that we're in, right? And along with that, living in a predominantly Judeo-Christian
universe, there are a lot of affiliations like broomsticks, devil worship, all of these things that might make people scared. If you say I'm a witch, they might say, oh God, I hope you don't hex me, which seems really antithetical to how you embody it. So how do you navigate those stereotypes in your own practice?
The really real and blunt answer is that I don't, because I just don't deal with it. but
Yeah.
but in reality, like, you do have those kinds of things that you have to navigate through. And again, maybe this is coming back to that 5 line, but I don't make it my responsibility to fully educate people unless they're willing to be educated. There's this really great line in this book called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And it's in the chapter which is about like knowledge or education. And it talks about how somebody can only take in knowledge when they're in the breaking dawn of that moment, where like they're open to it so the knowledge can slip in. And if they're in the night, then it can't come in. And so unless someone's in that breaking dawn of their own knowledge where they're open and accepting to that information, I don't make it my job to try to raise the sun.
Yeah.
You know, I don't make it my job. So, you know, people are going to have their preconceived notions about it. And if they're willing to explore where those come from and like get down to what witchcraft really is and what it could mean to be a witch, and to also accept that it means something different for every person. It is different for every person. And so if you do encounter a witch in your life, you have to ask them, what does that mean to you? Yeah. What does it look like in practice to you? What does it mean to embody that in your own life? Because it is wildly different across the board.
Yeah. It's very feminine in nature. I understand that there can be male witches, but I think it's Pam Grossman, the witch and scholar, who says the more you chase the witch, the further she recedes into the deep, dark wood, meaning that is true of the archetype, and that is true of the definition itself, where the more you try to grasp at it, the more elusive it becomes, for the exact reason you're saying, is that it's not linear,
Yes.
it's not masculine or clear cut. Yeah, you were gonna say it's
No, it's just that's exactly it. I actually I got into this comment discussion, we'll call it, with somebody on my Substack a couple weeks ago. So I just recently started Substack, which I'm very excited about because I forgot how much I love to write. But on my very first post, I just wrote my post about the ritual method, which is like my signature method for healing, you know, clearing energy blockages and manifesting, that kind of thing. And I was just explaining the method. It's just a step-by-step method that blends in some other stuff. But this person was kind of taking it as a system of belief. And they so badly wanted spirituality in general to be about like factual, logical knowing, and that their belief system was the right one and mine was the wrong one. And I was like, you kind of misconstrued what I was talking about, because this isn't a spiritual system of belief. It's a method for improving your life. And it was kind of that thing where they were very frustrated about my non-committal and my constant looping back to like, well, everybody believes different things. And at the end of the day, nobody knows what the right answer is. And I think that it takes a mature and a brave person to say, I don't know. In the face of so desperately wanting to have answers and explanations about things in this world. You know, why do bad things happen? I don't know. It takes that kind of like courage to be like, I don't know and I'll never know. And it's kind of that way too, where like you kind of have to let it be known like you don't know it.
Do you find a certain, because I do, and maybe I'm projecting, but do you find a certain comfort in that, or a really liberating sort of surrender? It sounds like when you are able to place your faith in the not knowing, or like in letting Earth be a mystery school.
Yes, you use the right word, which is surrender. That feeling of surrender of like, I don't know. And that's okay. I actually, one of like my favorite posts I've ever written on Instagram was a post just like that, where it was like, the thing that's keeping you stuck is your hyperfixation on trying to solve the problem instead of just sitting in the now and being like, I don't know, and that's okay. And then allowing that stillness to open you to clarity. It's the same thing for me, where the surrender and finding peace in like your own power and your own free will, but also the total unknown of like, maybe it's chaos, maybe it's destiny, but to say, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to be on my path and I'm going to do me. And the rest of it is up to universe.
Yeah. And it seems like such a subtle thing to do, but it's hard and it's
so
not
hard
practice.
Mm-mm.
And that's why a lot of, I think, the subtleties in witchcraft, in esoteric practices, can feel revolutionary. And kind of like you opened by saying, they're often quite mundane, they're often subtle, but they can feel revolutionary because they're different than the sort of status quo thinking.
I think that like when you find that surrender, when you start to embody your own magic, it's like you've hit upon the song the soul sings. And so even in the simplicity, it's like you come alive in it. And I really think that's because like you're humming the frequency of your own soul in that way.
Magic. How do you define magic?
Well, I think that magic is the unseen connection of all things.
So a year ago, you say, I am a witch, I'm going to own this. And you had been feeling into this your whole life. This is remembering. And I've done your ritual series, and I was sort of, oh my gosh, you know all these things. It's so amazing. I listened to it a lot. And I wonder, how then did you educate yourself to know spellcraft, to know what parts of the lineage and history apply to you, things like the northeast, southwest, the elements? How does one go about learning all of this?
Well, I think that the first place really is just books, and to not cut yourself down to one method or one system or one way of practicing, or I think that full embodied exploration is definitely the answer, because the way that I've come to my practice and then how I've distilled my own knowledge, my own experiences, skills, and intuitive knowing into what I help other people do is all from allowing myself that broad exploration. And it really did start with books. So, I mean, like, I have like drawers and shelves of books, and I'm always reading like 5 different witchcraft books at one time. So,
oh my gosh, what do you have? Some favorites that come to mind? Some like you have to read these 3?
Okay, well, I'll give you a couple. So there's one called Psychic Witch by Auryn, Auryn. And if you read that book, you will recognize some of the practices that I do in my rituals, because I use a lot of that to activate that psychic part of your brain. So that one's really excellent. There's also Moon Magic. I found it. So Moon Magic by Diane Alquist. That's a great one for understanding the lunar cycles and doing like lunar magic. She also has one that's specifically spells as well. So like in addition to this book, that's a great one. There's also this really great book called Witchery by Juliet something. My gosh, I'm probably going to have to send you an email. With some book recs. But yeah, books I think is like a really strong place to start. I actually would discourage people from beginning on like Witch Talk and those places.
Witch Talk. Why would you discourage people from leading with that?
I find it's like I said, like people want to be like very assured in their beliefs. They want their beliefs to be facts so badly that a lot of the culture on Witch Talk, even though I think there's so much good culture and I think there's a lot of brilliant things happening, and I am really grateful for that online resurgence, of introducing people to this world, to these methods, to the craft, to all of those things. But what I see a lot of is that definitive, like, it's my way or the highway, where it's like, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, for example, people are up in arms that every single eclipse portal I offer an eclipse portal experience, because they're like, you shouldn't be doing magic and you shouldn't be doing rituals under the eclipse. Like, that's really chaotic, terrible, negative energy. Like, you're leading people astray. Like, I mean, I have had people go off on me. They hate that I do these experiences. But the way that I do them is that the eclipse portal is all about stripping away your ego and kind of like earthquaking you back into realignment with your destiny. And sometimes through that process, people get turned around and they start going the wrong way. They start to encounter like tests, triggers, challenges, whatever it is, and they get all twisted and turned around and they get knocked way off course. And what I do is I help people basically like take a deep breath while they're in the middle of this storm and just go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. Get really, really, really still, get introspective, realign with your soul, realign with your essence, with your truth, with your authenticity, like use magic in that kind of way. And then that way you can come back up after the eclipse portal and catch a really big wave with your next manifestation or your next leap. People really hate that. And so it's like this whole culture of like, you're wrong, I'm right. And I just don't think that that's the healthiest place for people to start. I think that it really is good for people to just kind of like get into books, look to nature, get outside, go for walks barefoot without your headphones, like, and just start to allow yourself to think, to just reconnect with your own intuition, because whatever is coming forward for you is like what feels good, then that's going to be the way that you practice. And that's what's important. Not that you're following somebody else's practice to a T, but rather that you're listening to your own heart and following that.
And I think along with that, from what I've observed, a lot of the, nothing against witch talk, which for those who don't know is the witch sort of subset of TikTok short videos about witchcraft, the aesthetic, a lot of buying crystals, a lot of buying sage.
Yeah.
It feels like it's not all, again, it's not binary, it's not all bad, but it's almost like capitalism grafted onto what was meant to be a practice that's anchored into the earth. It feels a little bit of friction there. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. And this is why, like, so I create rituals. It's like the biggest thing that I do is like creating rituals. And with every ritual that I create, I always offer a full setup and a simplified setup. And then I also tell people, you could do this with no setup and it will work just the same. It will work just the same.
Like I said, I did a ritual of yours, and I am a mom in a city with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get all the things. Oh no. It's not another thing to add to the checklist. What I absolutely loved was exactly what you just said. And I said, you know what? Now is the perfect time. I don't need to have all the things. Let me use what's in the pantry. This is accessible to me. It doesn't need to be perfect. What I already have is perfect. And it removed the barrier and allowed me a way in. And I thought, oh, that feels nature.
And I think too that sometimes that that emphasis on the things, on the bits and bobs, like having the crystals and the herbs. For example, when I post on Instagram, so if it's like a new moon or a full moon, typically most of the time I'll post some kind of reel where I show myself doing my little ritual setup, and then I'll briefly explain like how you could do this on your own, you know, because not everybody, even if my ritual is like $33, someone might not have $33 in that moment, and that's fine. So like, here's a little bit to like get you started on your own. And I'll have people commenting like, what were the exact herbs that you were using? And what were the exact crystals that you had on your ritual setup? And I'll usually tell them, but then I'll emphasize to them, like, that's not the most important thing. Just because I'm using mugwort as one of my herbs and you don't have that available doesn't mean that you have to go out and frantically buy mugwort. I bet you have rosemary in your pantry, and that's beautiful and that's perfectly fine too. I think that people just also get incredibly fearful about getting it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
What
And I
is the
think that
fear? Do you think that they're afraid it's not going to work or that it's going to backfire or what?
I think it's because of all of the conditioning we've had societally around witchcraft that they believe it's real. Even if they're just dipping their toe in the water and they're like, I don't know if this is real or not. If you have some fear coming up about it, then your subconscious is like, oh, this shit is real. Like I've tapped into something here. And so I think that subconsciously and or consciously, they believe that it's fully real and they don't want to fuck up their lives. Like they don't want to like cast a spell or do a ritual and have their life fall apart. They don't want it to backfire. Also, we have karma heavily ingrained in our culture. And so people are like really afraid, like, am I doing something wrong here? Like, even if it's just like a gentle ritual for like releasing a bad memory or like trying to help yourself like manifest the love of your life. Like, who knows? It could be something big, it could be something small. People are just really afraid of the backfiring of that and messing it up.
And it's so interesting what you say, because if there's the fear there, then you must think it's real. Like, and it goes
Mhm.
back to the history. Like, well, you wouldn't be chasing and burning witches if you didn't believe magic was real. Now that's a whole other historical.
Yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms. But what do you think about that? Do you think that people talk about the ethics of witchcraft? Like, do you believe, people say hex the patriarchy, right? These big movements. Or some people want to hex their ex-boyfriend or something. Or do you believe a binding spell is more responsible because of, let's say, the threefold law? Or how do you channel ethics into the craft?
So that's one of those things where like I don't consider myself to be a spiritual leader. So who am I to say like what's right and wrong for you and your situation? I follow a few witches on Instagram who are full out baneful witches where like their thing is to like hex the domestic abuser or hex the PDF file, if you know what I'm saying, or, like those things. And like, I'm just kind of like, okay, girl, go do it. Somebody's got to do it, I guess. Like you go get your bag. Like, I mean, like if that's making people happy and that's putting them at ease, if you need to go out there and do a cord cutting ritual to get somebody who's really toxic and really negative out of your life, do it. Like, go for it. I don't think that it's my place. And for me, like baneful magic isn't a part of my practice. It's not who I am. But that's because it's not who I am.
I mean, everyone must decide that for themselves.
Everybody's got to decide that. And, I know the threefold law, that's a Wiccan principle. And so I'm not Wiccan. So I don't believe in the threefold law, but to each their own.
For those who don't know, and I know just a little about this, but Wicca versus witch.
Yeah. So Wicca is a religion, and within that religion, they use witchcraft. Witchcraft is the craft, the practice. Wicca is the religion. And I mean no offense by this whatsoever, obviously, because I love witchcraft and I love being a witch and I love all the energetics and the not discovered yet science of magic. But I mean, every religion is using witchcraft in their services. So like I was a church music director for a little while because my background actually is in choral music education. So I directed the choir, and it was at a very like wonderful church. Like the pastor was a woman and a raging liberal and a feminist, and it was just like, it was actually quite a wonderful place to be. And every single Sunday that I was there directing the choir, like I'd be like, wow, this is so witch coded. Like just like the lighting of the candles and the saying of the prayer and the way that you go through the service the same way every time. And then the taking of the bread and the wine. I was like, dude, this is straight up witchcraft.
I mean, every religion has a mystical element.
Yeah, it's mystical. And I think that's a really good way to put it, is like the mysticism is beautiful and you do it because it's real and it works, right? It's why people pray. It's the same thing.
It's why people pray. And then I love, when people say, oh, you don't believe in magic? Why are you blowing out the candle on your birthday? What you doing? You making
Yes.
What is that?
Exactly.
So your trajectory in this world. So you name that you're a witch, and now you've come upon your trademark series, The Ritual Method.
Yes.
What is the ritual method? How might one employ this in their day for their own personal goals? Can you take us through it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking about this earlier as I was in the shower because I thought maybe we'll talk about the ritual method, maybe we won't. And I was like, how do I really describe this? Because it's both really mundane, but then also unique in the way that I do it. And I kind of thought of it as being like chai or chai tea, is
Like the tea.
like the tea. Everybody knows what chai is, but different brands will have different blends. And so then people will have a different favorite blend or brand or maker or a coffee shop that does like the best chai in town. And that's kind of what the ritual method is, because when you really boil it down, the ritual method is a braid method of clearing, manifesting, and aligned action. That's really what it is. And this is talked about in all sorts of witchcraft books. It's talked about in other manifestation methods. It's talked about in neuroscience. It's talked about everywhere, right? But the way that I do it is I go through and I lead people through that 3-step process of clearing, manifesting, and then helping them with like what is truly actually inspired, intuitively, divinely guided aligned action. I help them do that through my unique blend of neuroscience, subconscious reprogramming, EMDR informed techniques, self-hypnosis, and then also energetics and witchcraft. So I blend all of these things together to create something that's really deeply, highly effective, something that's really, really potent. And it's about weaving and layering all of those things together. It's not necessarily a linear process where it's like, oh, we clear the blockage. Great. I'm good. Check, check that off the list. Oh, now I go into my manifesting. Okay. Check that off the list. Okay, great. Now I have to take aligned action. It's more that all of these things are kind of happening all at the same time, and they're all kind of layered and braided together. So that's the ritual method. And it's really there to help people live a better life. It's about activating your dream life through that method.
I love the image of a braid. I hadn't heard that before. But again, going with the fact that this is not linear in the way one might expect.
No.
It's a tapestry. It's woven.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so let's say somebody wants to manifest a lot of money and they come to you. And it's working, but then there's a blockage. So let's say like a manifestation isn't coming through. And I know this is a bespoke practice, probably. It's different for every person.
Yes. Yeah.
What would you recommend? Let's imagine an issue and then that the manifestation is not working. How would you create a container for that person?
It's so, oh my God, this is so interesting that you're talking about this, because literally what I'm launching this week are bespoke one-to-one mentorship packages.
Stop.
Yes, like literally. That's so crazy, because I haven't done one-to-one mentorship in a very long time. I stopped doing it. And the last time I did it, I was doing it exclusively for like female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing it where I'm calling it like the ritual method mentorship, where it's private. And what I'm doing is we're going to have like the guidance pieces. So like the meetings, the customized rituals, Telegram, like, so we can go back and forth and like really get in the nitty gritty with each other. But then the bespoke component is like creating a bespoke workshop for them. So it's like, we'll go through the workshop together over the course of like 3 months or 6 months, but then they continue to like repeat the workshop. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it's crazy that you mentioned that. So
no coincidences.
Yeah. So let's say you want to manifest a lot of money, right? You want to up level your finances and you just feel like you're coming up against a blockage. Like it's not happening. You've hit a ceiling. You're doing all the right things, quote unquote. You are manifesting like a mad woman and you're like doing the energetic work and you're doing the affirmations and the EFT tapping and the shit's just not happening.
Totally.
The first thing that I would do is I would actually ask them to pause and to get deep into what I call identifying your soul codes. So your soul codes for me is my way of distilling and understanding authenticity in a actionable way. So your soul codes are like the pillars of who you are. They're like the things that are like the most important to you, because like you have to get down to the answer of like, but why? So you
Right.
want to manifest a lot of money, but why? So then it becomes, well, I want to be able to buy my own house, but why? Well, I just want to know that like I have a property there and like like it's going to be there forever and I'm going to get taken care of. Okay, but why? And you keep digging down, and then at the bottom of it, it becomes like security. It's like, okay, so you want to feel secure. Well, then that's a soul code. So now we're getting down to like, why do you want the money? Maybe it is wealth. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's security. Maybe it's freedom. For freedom, that's a big one for people, especially when it comes to like, why do you want money? Freedom and security are usually the biggest ones. So then that's a soul code. So that's the first thing I would have you do is like really ask yourself, but why? And get down to your soul code. And typically everybody has between like 3 to 5 soul codes. And then you begin to then implement your soul code in your life in little ways. So if your soul code is actually security, maybe then that means investing in a budgeting app and then like beginning to create a little bit of security where you can. If one of your soul codes, like for me, my soul codes right now, because they can change, my soul codes right now are family, serenity, wealth, and beauty. So then every day it's like the little things that you do that activate those soul codes, because that's automatically going to put you in a magnetic place. So once we do that and you start to tap into your soul codes, you're starting to like live soul coded in your daily life, then we can go into the clearing. Now we're going to create some safety for your subconscious to open up to figure out like, why is it that this thing isn't coming through? So then we'd go into the ritual process. We'd probably do like one big like discovery ritual, like to really get down to the core issue. And then after that, we'd do our integration through journaling, through meditations, things like that. Then probably follow up with another ritual to actually release that. And then to create safety with the subconscious of like things are new now, we're embedding a new belief. We're creating a new synapse in the brain to create safety around this new belief, around this new thing, and then to get you expanded to be able to receive through the manifestation process. Then we would go into what people typically think of when they're trying to manifest something, especially things like money, where like they're usually stuck in like the manifestation aligned action part.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take you all the way back to getting in touch with your authenticity first, with your soul codes first, and then take you through the process. And that would be for anything, not just money, but for anything in your life, like whatever it is that you were trying to achieve. We have to get down to your why first, because if you're totally disconnected and out of integrity with your why, if there's something that you're trying to call in that you're desiring, but it's all from a place of ego, it's never going to happen.
And I wonder, how do you find your soul code? Because I think there's that instinct piece where if you're really being honest with yourself, you can probably figure it out. But I do think there's a lot of searching for the right answer. Once you land on something, like wondering, is that the right answer? I don't know. So how do you know when you hit it?
Well, for me, I literally have a workshop. I haven't sold it. It's funny. I made it and I haven't sold it.
Maybe it's time.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's called the Sovereign Codes, and it takes you through that process. Basically, like the whole first week in the workshop. It's a month-long workshop, and the first week is just about distilling that information about yourself, and it's taking you through journal prompts. A lot of the journal prompts take you back to childhood, where you were unaffected by the conditioning in your life or your life experiences, like where your essence was like really, really, really pure and strong. It's like taking you back there, doing the journal prompts. I've got a couple meditations that take you back to help you like really visualize, like, again, like distilling down from like, what does your dream life look like? Okay, why is that your dream life? And then taking people through the process of distilling it down. I've even got some ChatGPT prompts in there where you can input all of your answers, and that will help you kind of like get down and group it into those different categories. I've got a ChatGPT prompt that will help you create a soul-coded life where you input the parameters of your life where it's like, I'm busy, I work a job, like this is what I have going on in my life, these are my soul codes, like give me ways that I can activate all of these in a single day that fit into the life I already have.
Mm-hmm.
And then like that again, like gets your natural magnetism up and started.
Yeah. It's like, it sounds so parallel when you're talking about the intention behind manifestations and what you're able to go back, retrieve, and then take through the ritual method. It sounds very parallel to intentionality behind witchcraft. I think everybody goes through that phase of, oh, let me set up the crystals and the herbs and do the thing. Okay, why didn't anything happen? And you're sort of like, well, the whole thing is the intention behind it.
Yep.
Would
It's
you-
not about, yeah, because we love a formula. We love it. We love 2 + 2 = 4. We love to know that like, if I do this and then I do that, I'm going to get this result. If I use these herbs and this candle color and these crystals and this format on this day under this lunation, I'm going to get this result. But that's not at all how it works. Intention is everything, which like kind of looping back to what we were talking about how I give a full ritual setup, a simplified ritual setup, but then I also tell people you don't need a setup. You could just press play on the ritual and it will still work. It's because the intention is embedded and clear.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
people are powerful beyond their wildest dreams. And that sounds like a, cute thing to say, but I think the remembering of your own power, which a lot of witches talk about, I think all people have an innate power far beyond what they perceive to be the case. And this sounds like you're sort of lighting the way, leading them back to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why do you think, along those lines, it's so popular right now? There seems to be a real surge in witchcraft, and not only the aesthetic, but like people identifying as witches. It's really in the culture. Like, why now?
God, buckle up. Because this is going to be a multi-layered response. So I think that I think it's kind of like the perfect storm is being created right now. And it is a storm of our own making. And it is simultaneously collapsing things in the world that have to be collapsed in order to get a return and momentum forward in the right direction. So for anybody who's listening to this, I don't know when you're listening, but we're recording this smack dab in the middle of the eclipse portal, and the eclipse is eclipsing on the world stage. It is absolutely insane right now on a global level. But I think that the reason why witchcraft is so popular right now is for these reasons. Number one, I think that people are completely fatigued with technology, social media, their phones, the consumerism. I think people are so information fatigued that they are looking for ways to go back to being more analog, where they're looking for ways to connect back with themselves. So for me, for example, I'm totally fatigued on all of that stuff. I am not on my phone any more than I have to be in order to be there for my business and to be there for the people that my business needs to be there for. Like, that's it. I actually pre-ordered a really cool like landline phone, but it's not a landline phone. It looks like a landline phone, like a corded landline phone. But what it does is it connects via Bluetooth to your phone. So you can put your phone away in a drawer. And if somebody calls you, the like landline phone will ring.
Cool.
I'm very excited about it. I'll send you a link.
Please do. I'll add it to the show notes. That sounds very liberating.
It is so cool. I'm very excited about it. And it can connect up to 2 phones. So like my husband and I could both have our phones connected to it and not have to be near our phones. And then what's cool too, oh, I love that she did this. The maker of it, Kat, it's called Physical Phone. If you press star on the landline phone, it activates Siri. So then you can say like, hey, Siri, call mom. And then that way you don't have to go get your phone and look at the number. It'll just call. So like, I'm looking forward to that. I also, I recently invested in just some letter writing materials to start writing letters again. I find myself just really rathering to read by candlelight or just to be on my little balcony deck garden, or just be like on a barefoot walk rather than do anything else. So I think that that's one of the reasons, is that people are really fatigued. So they're looking for a return. They're looking for a return to simplicity, to a better connection with nature, to a better connection with themselves. And they're looking to return to real world experiences because the dopamine addiction of social media, where it's like your brain thinks that it's getting an experience through watching other people do something, I think that it's catching up with people. And they're looking to actively create those experiences in their life. So I think that that's one reason. I think another reason is that people are struggling.
Yeah.
And this is not a right or wrong, but I think that people are struggling. And so I think when they see somebody post a spell for money, they're like, oh, well, that feeds my need for instant gratification because I've been living in a world where I do get instant gratification, where I can order something on Amazon and it will be on my doorstep that same day. You know, like we're used to that kind of thing. And when we're frustrated about how we're suffering or what we're struggling with, we love the idea that we can get a quick solution, right? When somebody has been applying to 300 jobs and they still haven't gotten a job and they see a spell that's going to create an open road spell that's going to help them create an opportunity to get a job, of course they're going to be like, well, shit, I'll give it a try. Nothing else is working. And those kinds of one-off spells, they can absolutely work. They can absolutely work. But I just hope that that introduction is just the invitation to go deeper with it. So I don't think that it's right or wrong, people wanting like a quick fix or a quick solution. I don't think that that's right or wrong. I think that I totally understand. I get it. I see where you are. I just hope it's that invitation to go even deeper with the work. Those for me are the two biggest things why I think it's so popular right now. Mm-hmm. That and pop culture has done a really great job over the last several decades of really making people so intrigued by this elusive, mystical witch archetype. You know, like we've had it all throughout pop culture. People write endless books about it. And I think that it's just something where people are like, ooh, this is fun. Like I could be this if I wanted to be this, you know, it's like almost like a childhood dream coming true.
It's a fun archetype, that's for sure. I wonder too, like placing it, you spoke a little bit about this, but placing it in a historical context is interesting. And I'm pulling this quote from the ether and I'll find the citation, but this quotation I read that said, show me your witches and I'll show you your feelings about women. And this being true throughout all of history, going back with the crone archetype, with the wart and the haggard face, hunched back in the woods, that had to do a lot with women choosing to be older, unmarried. Maybe you owned property. Maybe you weren't part of the, regular village order of things, and they had to other you. And so evil was grafted onto that. And then, like I said, we have our sort of bombastic sex witches, which are funny and really sexy. And that coincided with, I think, birth control and I think women's liberation. And so women living in their own sexuality, that was threatening in a different way. And so we had to project that onto the witch image. How do you see witches depicted in media right now predominantly? And like, what do you think that says about the cultural moment that we're in?
I mean, you've hit on the deep ties to feminism. And I think that that's a strong place of where we are with the modern day portrayal of the witch, is the woman who decides to not live a life centered around men, to live a life where they get to be at the forefront of what they do, how they choose to live, like where they choose to participate in society, where they choose to step outside of societal norms or expectations because it's what feels aligned for them. And, we see this through things like practical magic and, even hocus pocus, like those kinds of things. And I think that that's really strong in the archetype of the witch in our modern day lens, which is like, it's strength, but it's strength to live how you choose to live, not in a particular kind of way, but rather, because like even to decide like, oh, I'm not going to be the mother, housewife, like, knees down in a garden bed kind of person. I'm going to be over here and I'm going to be rageful and feminine. It's like, that's great as long as that feels aligned for you, as long as that feels like your truth. And it's not just, I'm going to unsubscribe from this thing over here so that I can go resubscribe to this thing over here, but rather the strength and the courage that it takes for you to simply say, I'm just going to do what I need to do and I'm going to be me.
And you do that so beautifully. This podcast is about unmasking. I've been a performer for a long time, and it's about removing the performance. And I think that's what drew me initially to your work, is the unmasking of witchcraft, and saying you don't have to put on one costume or one archetype and have that be your thing. You can embody this practice. You can practice ritual and be the person you are and have it be integrated into your life as it is. Like, take the masks off and look at your own truth and your own life and how that plays out.
Yeah. Always in my life, I have been most interested in just helping people be happy. To kind of bring it back to human design, I forget, it's like the cross of something. You know how in human design you have like the cross of this, like the cross of that.
Like your life
and
purpose.
Your life purpose. Mine, I was kind of like disappointed when I found this out. And then it very quickly turned to, oh yeah, that makes sense. Mine is love. And that's all it is just love. Like that, my life's purpose. Like when I went, and I did the research and I was reading all these different articles, and I was like, but what do you mean that's my purpose? What do you mean my purpose is love? And then I kind of looked back on it and I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like I'm just somebody who's like bleeding heart, like overflowing with love all the time. And, you know, not everybody in this world understands it. Like when I could just meet a person or like only have like a little bit of an acquaintance with them for me to be like, okay, I love you, bye. I mean it. Like I mean it. And that's okay if somebody doesn't feel the same way or they don't understand that. It's just kind of who I am. Where was I going with this?
No, it's okay.
But
Like,
so with that like idea of like my purpose here is to love. I think it's great if people want to do my rituals and they want to commit that as being a part of their lifestyle. But what I'm more interested in is somebody living ritualed, which is just to slow down and live with more intention and live authentically with your soul, to live in alignment with like who you're meant to be, and to have the courage and the strength, like I said, to spit in the face of whatever doesn't align for you. And so if people want to like do my rituals and like do the ritual method and do the workshops and do all the things, like that's great. I'm so happy for you. But at the end of the day, I just want you to be happy.
Something that struck me when I did the ritual with you, you had a meditation that was envisioning yourself as a tree. And your branches go all the way up into the celestial skies. And then your roots go all the way down to the core of the earth. And in the spiritual community, I feel like there is a lot of ease and openness with what is above, right? For me personally, and I wonder if this is widespread, I felt a distinct block with the rootedness that was harder and I felt more effortful. The energy going up to the sky, I was like, yep, I'm open, channeling. But when you said, okay, we're rooting it into the earth, I was made aware of my own block there. And how I interpreted that was, okay, you're interested in the spirituality, the craft, the ritual. Sometimes there's a bit of a friction with, oh, by the way, we live in a human body on the earth plane with traffic and laundry and the realities of living in, at this time, 2025. And it ties into what you're talking about in terms of living ritualed. And so I wonder, just sort of as a last topic that we'll speak on, how would you recommend people navigate living a ritualed life in this next phase? Because as you said, we're in an eclipse window that will be closing soon. However, this eclipse series will continue through 2027. So how do people ground themselves? What would be your witchy advice or your love advice?
You've hit on something that's like the core of my essence. And it's something that I've spoken with other people, obviously in informal conversations. And it's something that I think about a lot, which is that in the witchcraft is a part of the spiritual community. Even though it's not a spiritual belief system in and of itself. And so I find myself to be a part of that community, and kind of as I always have throughout my whole life, where like I'm not really in, like I'm kind of like on the outs, and always getting comfortable with like that's okay. Like I can be on the out, that's fine. I've also always been the person that's like very split down the middle of like emotional and logical. Like I value science and I use it in my work. I also believe in and understand the power of magic, and I value that and I use it in my work. So within the spiritual community, I find that most people are really, really putting emphasis on and valuing spiritual ascension, spiritual knowing, knowledge. What you said, like, and I do it, I think, almost at the beginning of all of my meditations, like that tree, where it's like, we're going to go up into the celestial energy, but we're going to go down into the terrestrial energy. I actually am on the outs of the spiritual community because I'm far more interested in our earthly human lives. Because I figure if we're here, then I want to help people here. If we're here, I want this lifetime to be a focus of yours. Like I understand like that it's really important to people to have that spiritual ascension, to explore the idea of past lives, to explore like what is the meaning of it all, and to like really, get down into those topics. But at the same time, I want you to be happy here. I want you to be happy on this earth, in this lifetime, in this human experience. And so that to me is like living ritual. So for anybody who's in this season, we're navigating the eclipse portal. We're going to feel the effects of this for 2 years to come. And it's always waves, right? Because guess what? There will be another eclipse portal in March. It never ends. What I would say is like, if you want to live ritual, you need to do what I talked about, which is to get down to your soul codes, I think. I think that you need to boil down to your soul codes, and you need to figure out like, what is it that makes my soul sing? What is the frequency of my spirit? What is the frequency of what it means to make me feel alive and the most like myself? And then what are the ways that you can do this right now with whatever restrictions or parameters you're currently going through? What are the simplest, littlest ways that you can live ritualed in that right now? Whether that's like, for me, one of my soul codes is family. Sometimes that means taking my kids to the aquarium, but sometimes that just means having a 5-minute tickle fight on the floor. One of my soul codes is serenity. For me, that's a daily non-negotiable to meditate, even if the only time that I have to meditate is 8 minutes in the morning when I'm holding my coffee on the couch. Another one is beauty. Some days beauty is like going for like a beautiful walk in a gorgeous park. But maybe some days beauty is just lighting a candle and taking 10 seconds to admire the flame. Mm-hmm. So like, what are the littler things that you can do in your life right now that don't disrupt the balance, that don't add burden or chores to your to-do list, but rather integrate with your life right now, that bring you back into your body, that create a little bit of mindfulness, that help activate that soul within you? Start there, and you will find that the colors are brighter, that the smells are sweeter, that the tastes are more potent and pungent and punchy. You will find that your bed is softer and warmer, that the night sky is more beautiful. Like everything around you will feel alive because you will be more alive than you have been. Follow that, and the world will open up for you.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish our conversation?
Just that I'm so completely honored and in awe of you, and I'm just very grateful to have had this conversation.
Me too.
You've lit me up, and I'm going to be carrying it for the next couple of weeks because it's just been so wonderful.
I feel the same. It's so magical to speak with you, and thank you for the guidance, the love, and the container you share for people to walk their path.
My deepest thanks to Shannon Speir for opening our season with such grounded grace and luminous simplicity. Shannon, thank you for reminding us that magic isn't something we have to chase. It's already here, in our morning coffee, in the breath between to-do lists, in the way we choose to show up with presence. If you felt yourself exhale while listening to this episode, I invite you to explore more of Shannon's work. You can find her on Instagram. I will tag it in the show notes at It's Shannon Speir, Speir, where she shares practical magic, ritual invitations, and reflections from her own life. She also holds beautiful virtual and in-person gatherings. Her website info and her Substack info is accessible through her Instagram. The link in her bio, it has all the details. And again, Shannon, thank you for showing us that every day is worthy of ritual. Every moment can hold magic. Until next time.